Thank you for choosing this Make with Mandy video tutorial to help you sew the penny tiered dress. This is one of my absolute favourite dresses because you can make it in so many different fabrics and wear it so easily. It comes with 2 different neck options, 3 different sleeve lengths and 2 skirt lengths as well, with an elasticated cuff and 2 tiers which are gathered. It's really floaty and light, and it's a loose fitting garment which can suit any occasion. So let's begin, and I can't wait to see your finished makes. The pattern is available on www.makewithmandy.com.
Your first step will be to add stay stitching around the neckline on the front and the back. The reason that you do this is because when you're handling the fabric, it could stretch out of shape, so this will help to stabilise that area. I've added my stay stitching around 0.5 centimetres or even a little bit wider because I have a seam allowance here of 1.5 centimetres, so there you can see I just added that around the neck. The next step is for you to pin your darts in place so that you can then sew your darts. So you can see here that I've got a little mark there for the end of the dart, and then I've cut little notches as well to show where I need to fold my fabric. There we go. I'm just going to place a pin to line up the notches, and then I'm going to place a pin at the end of my dart point there as well. And then you sew starting from your side seam all the way to the end here, and you leave a little tail, and then you repeat that on the other side. I've sewn my darts here starting at the underarm, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to press this flat on both sides, and then your next step will be to attach the top at the shoulders and the side seams. I've stitched down the side seams across the shoulder openings and attached the front and the back bodice together. I've then overlocked all those areas to neaten up the edges. Now we'll attach the pockets. So firstly, you need to ensure that you have marked the notch that's on your large rectangle piece. So I'm just going to cut a little notch in there, and then you take your pocket, one of your pocket bag pieces, and you line the top edge of that up with the notch. This is the right side of your fabric, and this is the right side of your pocket piece. They're going to be facing each other, and then what you want to do is just pin this in place, and then you can sew to attach this straight short edge of the pocket to your tier 1 panel. Once you've stitched the short edge of your pocket bag down, flip it over and then have a very neat top stitch along this edge. Your top stitch should be on the pocket bag rather than on the panel that is going to be your skirt. You need to repeat these steps across all 4 pocket bags that you use on your 2 skirt tier panels. Push the pocket bag back onto the skirt body and then overlock along this straight edge of the skirt panel. Ensure that you don't catch the pocket bag in as you do that. Repeat that on all 4 pocket bags. Now to start creating the gathers at the top of the skirt panel, sew 2 rows of stitching along the top edge of your panel. This will be the closest one to your pocket bag. Leave long thread ends. Do not backstitch when you start or finish this. And then grab 2 of the thread ends. Ensure that you've done this on a loose machine tension and pull them until they start to gather. Then you can just slide this along. It takes a bit of time, and depending on how loose your machine tension is, this will either be easier or harder. But if you just gently pull, try not to snap the threads, and try and create an even gather. So do this all the way along both the front and the back skirt panels. Once you're happy with your gathers, using your hands, roughly spread out the gathers to make sure that they're nice and even, and then just offer up the piece to the bodice piece to check that it's an approximate good fit. The next thing that you need to do is you're going to attach the skirt panels down the side seams. So take both of your skirt panels, one is the front, one is the back, and lay them with the right sides facing each other. Pull the pocket bags out. And just line them up and make sure that your pocket bags match up. You just want to adjust that a little bit. There you go. And then you're going to sew along here and stop when you get to 1.5 centimetres past where your pocket bag starts. That's because the seam allowance on this garment is 1.5 centimetres. And then you're going to line up your pocket and sew all the way around here, coming back to the top here, and you will be at 1.5 centimetres here, and then sew up. So you can see here where I've stitched down and around the pocket, and then come back round and continued onto the hem. And so then when you look at the right side, you will see that there's a very neat finish there at the pocket, and it continues on to the bottom. To finish the pocket bag neatly, snip into this corner here, ensuring that you do not snip into your stitch line. Do the same with the bottom. And then overlock around the pocket edge, ensuring that you move out of the way that bit of the skirt. So go all the way around the edge, and that will neaten that edge for you. The next step will be to locate the notches on your front and back bodice. So you should have notches at the centre front and centre back, and also notches midway along the bottom between the centre of your bodice. You should have similar notches on your skirt panels. They might be a little bit hard to find now that you've gathered them. But what you need to do is you need to locate these notches and pin those places on your top and skirt so that you can make sure that it's nice and evenly spaced out. So do that and go all the way around, attaching the front and the back skirt to the front and back bodice. So here is your finished overlocked pocket bag, and you can see there I've got those little notches there. If you want to, you can also add a bar tack here from the right side, just using something like your buttonhole stitch or a very fine zigzag. So you can do that at the top and the bottom of your pocket opening if you want to make that more secure. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to turn my top the right way around, and I'm going to put this inside my skirt panel, which is currently the wrong way around. So what you then have is the right side of your top and the right side of your skirt are touching. I'm just going to line up the side seams there. So there you go, the top is now inside my skirt panel. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to locate my notches, and I'm going to start pinning evenly, starting at the side seam. I'm going to put my seam allowances in opposite directions so that there's no bulk. And then I'm going to locate the midway. If you can't find your notches, you can always just fold your gathered skirt in half and create new notches if you're happy that all of your gathering was nice and even, because I know it can be hard. So I'm just going to mark the middle of this with a pin just because I don't want to accidentally cut and then break my gather stitches. So there we go, that's it. We know that that's the middle. So then I'm going to pin, and remember this is the wrong side out here that I've got here, and I've located that center notch there, and I'm going to pin. And when you're going to sew this, you're going to sew with the gathers facing you, because you want to make sure that you don't accidentally flip the gathers and that they are all looking nice and even when you sew them. So there's my other middle notch there. So I'm going to pin the halfway point of this gathered section to that as well. Okay, once you're comfortable with that, double check that you've got everything the right way round. So your pocket bags will tell you if you've done it right. So you can see I can put my hand in from this side here. My darts are on the other side, so I know that my top's the right way around as well, that I've pinned it all correctly. And now you're going to sew all the way around, ensuring that your gathers stay nice and flat and do not sort of get flipped and flapped over. You don't create any additional tucks. As you did with the first tier, now repeat the gather stitches on the bottom tier. So 2 rows of stitching, leave the thread ends loose and pull them, and then gently spread out the gathers. This measurement here, once it's all gathered, should match the hem of tier 1. Again, like you did on tier 1, you should find the middle of this section, mark it with a pin or a notch, and then find the middle of each side and mark that as well. That will help you to make sure that your gathers are nice and even, and to line it up with the tier above it. Now, depending on which size you're making, you may have to add in an extra panel to ensure that you have enough gathers in your bottom tier. So you can see that I've made a join here, and once it's all finished you won't be able to see that join at all because of the gathers, but do ensure that you overlock the inside edge of it. Once you've attached the bottom tier, then overlock all of the edges on the inside that are horizontal and press them all upwards towards the top of your garment. So your next step is to attach the neck facings. So here are my facings. I've already block fused them together, which means fusing a bigger piece of fabric than you need and then cutting it all out together. So there you are, there's my fusing on the back. So what you need to do is you need to lay your right sides together and then sew across the shoulder seams at your seam allowance. Open them out flat to reduce the bulk. Press them, and then along the outer section of your neck facing, overlock all the way around. Now take your garment and your facing, and with the right side of your garment facing up and the wrong side of your facing towards you, position your facing pieces in place and then pin them around the neckline. So you can start by lining up the shoulder seams of your facing and your garment and pop a pin in there. Repeat that on the other side. And then carefully pin as many pins as you need to get this in place, and do the same along the back, and then sew at your seam allowance along this edge. You then want to cut some notches into your seam allowance to enable the neck to sit as flat and round as possible. So with a pair of sharp scissors, cut notches probably around 1.5 centimetres apart, taking care not to go into your stitch line or to cut the facing. If your fabric is particularly bulky, you can also trim down your seam allowance by half if you want to. Your next step is to push your facing away from the garment and stitch, catching the seam allowance with your stitch line just a couple of mil away from this attaching row of stitching here. That will just help to create a nice neat finish, and you won't have a top stitch around your neckline. Once you've added your row of top stitching, then you can press your neckline, putting all of the facing inside, and then give it a good iron and a steam. And then finally, to secure the facing in place, you can stitch in the ditch. So that means to sink your sewing machine needle into the shoulder seam so the stitches are not visible, and lining it up with your facing shoulder seams, and that will keep that facing better in place. Next, we need to create the gather at the top of the sleeve head. So sew a loose running stitch with your machine across the top of your sleeve curve in between the gather notches as indicated on the pattern, and then taking one of your threads, pull to gather the sleeve head until you're happy with the amount of gathers, and then repeat on the opposite arm, and just take a look and make sure that the gathers look nice and even, that both sleeve heads look the same. Once you're happy with the amount of gathers, with your right sides together, sew down this underarm seam and then overlock. The next step will be to put your sleeve into your armhole. So the notches that you have here, a single notch denotes the front sleeve piece and a double notch denotes the back. So you can sort of just see the double notch there. So the way to do this is turn your sleeve right side out. Starting with your garment, the wrong side facing outwards, identify the front and back of your sleeve. So here is the front of my sleeve. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my sleeve right side out. And then I'm going to put this sleeve into the armhole. I'm going to line up the underarm points. Pop a pin in there. There you go. And then at your notches, check that the double notch of the back armhole and the double notch of the back sleeve are on the same side, and secure that with a pin. Do the same with the front notch. So that's your single notch. So locate your single notch on your armhole and match it up to the single notch on your sleeve. And then take a look at your sleeve head and see if you've gathered enough or if you need to gather a little bit extra. So you can see here that my gather is maybe a little bit too much. You also have the notch that was at the center sleeve, the sleeve head there, your shoulder point. So I'm going to pin that in place, and then I can evenly move out the excess gathers until this all sits nice and flat. And then, starting at the underarm point, sew all the way round in a circle to attach your sleeve to the armhole. Once you've done this, because the seam allowance is quite chunky, it can be a little bit too bulky on such a curved seam. So I would recommend cutting this seam allowance down by about half of its width and then overlocking these raw edges. If you're feeling brave enough, you can just do it all in one with your overlocker. Obviously take great care as you're cutting. You have a lot of fabric here. You don't want to cut into your actual garment. The inside of the sleeve has all been neatly overlocked now, so next we will move on to creating the elastic for the cuff. And this sleeve here I'm doing is the midi sleeve, so turn your garment the right side out, and you need to fold it by about 1/2 centimetre to begin with, and then by 1.5 centimetres, and that's going to create your channel for this elastic cuff. Now you can either choose to sew it down this 1/2 centimetre turn that you do, just to make it easy for you, or you can press it, or you can just do it all in one, whatever you find easiest. So I'm going to just do this all in one. I'm going to use my pins to secure this in place. Go all the way around the cuff doing this. Being careful not to drag or twist the fabric in any way. Create a nice even channel. And then, to sew the channel and leave a gap for you to insert your elastic, I would suggest leaving a gap about 3 centimetres. So position your pin so you know where to start and finish. And then sew neatly at your folded edge, as close to the fold as possible, keeping it a consistent width. You'll be sewing in a circle. I've sewn my sleeve channel and you can see that there's an opening here, and I've got my safety pins and I've cut my elastic to the right size that's required. Now, I've got a couple of different options of safety pin size here, so you can try. The bigger the better, really. This is quite fiddly to get this through. So what you want to do is attach your safety pin to one end of the elastic and then push it through the channel going all the way round. Obviously the one thing that you want to make sure is that you don't lose the elastic on the other end. So what you can do is just use a second safety pin just to secure it to your fabric. There you go. You can just feel the elastic all the way around. You need to thread it through, keep pulling. Until you get to the other end. There you go. So I've pulled that all the way through now. And you can head over to your machine, take off your safety pins, and you can attach the two ends of your elastic using either a zigzag stitch or several back and forth stitches. So just overlap them by 1 centimetre and then sew neatly across here just to make sure that that's fully secured. When you've attached your elastic, then the last thing you need to do on the sleeve is to go back in with your machine and join up and close that gap that you left to thread the elastic. Now the final stage is to hem your garment. So try it on and make sure that you're happy with the length, and then you can fold up the hem once by 1.5 centimetres and then twice, and you can iron or press this in place. You can do it in 2 steps. And then, as you did with the cuff, just sew neatly along this folded edge, keeping your foot a consistent distance away from the hem. And yeah, go all the way around, and then you will be the proud owner of your own finished penny dress. Hope you enjoy wearing it.